So thank you to the TechTable team who've invited us to speak today. I have no idea why or what we're doing here. We don't get out much in the hotel world, so thank you for listening to us. We hope you find it a little bit interesting. Firstly, I don't know quite how many of you know anything about Yotel or the brand. I think for those of you based in New York, you may know us. But I thought it might be a good idea for those of you that don't to give you a little bit of the background about the brand. And then hopefully what we're going to do today is to talk about the fact that we were effectively, when we started out, and I was one of the founding team members, which I'm not that old really, I started very young. When we started out, it was a company that was really based on technology, I think, right? We were the first hotel company to ever do an hourly booking system. And this is nearly 10 years ago. So we had technology right at the heart of our brand DNA. The brand was founded by a guy called Simon Woodruff, who actually was on a TV series called, in the UK, which is called Shark Tank over here. I think you have the same thing. We have the equivalent in the UK. And Simon travelled on British Airways once and got upgraded to first class. That was the first time that had ever happened because he was too tight to pay for it normally. So he found how you could have amazing design in a really small, smart space because you don't need much space, right? And so we were one of the first hotel companies to develop a really very small, smart, compact, but well-designed room. We used aircraft cabin designers called Priestman Good, who actually designed our first prototype cabin that was exhibited at an event, 100% design. Got amazing feedback from it and decided to get some funding from our Middle Eastern investors and launch in our airports in London Heathrow and London Gatwick, and a year later in Schiphol. But we took a while to get going, right? Like all entrepreneurial companies. It took us a while to get some momentum, but eventually we opened an amazing 713 cabin, as we call them in airline speak, hotel in near Times Square, just on 42nd and 10th. And then we now have a really nice super pipeline of hotels in both airports and cities across the globe. What we're going to talk about today is really how we wanted to merge that feeling of technology in the digital world with the challenge of repositioning ourselves in a landscape that was really changing very quickly. And I don't know how many of you know about Yotel, but I thought you'd like to see a little bit of a video to see what we do. Yeah, let's liven the proceedings up a little bit. Here we go. This is where class dance is. That's us. In a nutshell, that's what we do. Okay. So, bit more of a serious challenge for me as managing the brand. We realized that coming into a very competitive landscape in the industry that we needed to just have a look at our brand, what it stood for, what we really want out of the brand, what we're going to deliver to our guests. And we embarked on a little project to work out how we were going to separate our brands in the future. And we decided that our brand heart, we get this kind of core Yotel experience. And on the right-hand side, as you can see there on the screen, we actually developed our airport brand into something called Yotel Air. Very exciting at the moment. It is the only hotel company globally, as far as I'm still aware, that books rooms by the hour. I don't want any smutty comments. No comments. It's an amazing product. We operate Heathrow at something like a 250% occupancy because we're selling those rooms sometimes 3 times in every 24 hours. So we sell by the hour, but we still give amazing things like free Wi-Fi and the basics that you'll see in the video. So it's a slightly different concept. But we recognized that we needed to really separate out that brand slightly differently and differentiate it. And then in the middle, you'll see we've got a very exciting project going on, which is hot off the press, which is we're going to be developing a residential brand to go into hotels with mixed-use developments, which is very exciting for us. So the challenge, coming back to where we were positioned, we already know that we're a technology-focused hotel company, and that's great. But how then are we going to differentiate ourselves with all of our competitors coming into the market who basically have tons more money than us, right? You'll all know the Marriotts and the Starwoods of this world. If any of you are here, we're always happy to take some information from you because you know a lot more than we do. But at the end of the day, they have huge R&D budgets and we don't. So we have to kind of work out ways that we can use our technology to the best effect. But also, how can we differentiate ourselves in a world where the hotel market is becoming a little bit like a commodity, right? I think you'll all agree. And those aren't all the brands that we compete with by any means. I can name you probably 3 or 4 more off the top of my head, and there's more coming in. Literally, as we spoke yesterday, I think it was, Klaus,
right.
Accor announced another new brand that they're launching very soon, actually interestingly called Joe and Joe, but not after me. And I had to reassure my CEO that I wasn't joining to leave them yesterday, which was quite interesting. So when we looked at what we really needed to deliver, when we did, by the way, I can't go through it today, but we did tons and tons of research with our guests, but also with our investors and developers, and also with our crew, to work out where we really want to position ourselves and what we want to deliver. And these points were really the biggest things that came out of all of that research. And therefore, and I'm not going to go through them because you can all read them up there, but the biggest thing for us was this time-sensitive nature, and that's really where the theme of what we're talking about today came through, which was creating time through technology, but also how we merge that and how we fuse that with how our guest experience feels, which of course is a very people-focused business. In order to do that, one of the most interesting things out of the piece of research was that people, guests, and everyone else are looking for intuitive service. And actually, we had a horrible recognition that for people on the ground, and thankfully people like Klaus, who actually operate our hotels, it's extremely difficult to do, right? Guests almost want to know that you know what they want before they even know or before they even get there. And it's really tough, it's really hard to deliver. And so therefore we had to kind of take a really decent look at how on earth we were going to merge this technology-focused brand with a people brand, which is what our guests really wanted out of it. And in terms of, this is a very complicated slide, but when you're a brand person, this is what you do. This is my life, apart from a bit of colouring in, which all my colleagues seem to think that I do. And this is really about creating a set of values out of all of that research, which you'll see on the left-hand side there. We're smart, we're empathetic, we're honest, inspiring, and efficient. Really simple. And we use technology to do all of those things. But what's interesting is that actually technology is at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of the fact that we call that a table stake attribute. So that's really something that we have no choice but to deliver. The expectations of our guests and of our crew, in fairness, or that we should have the expertise and the efficiency through technology to deliver everything that you need and nothing you don't. But the most interesting way that we're finding there is how to create time. How do we create that seamless, intuitive service? And it's a real challenge. So we're really, at Yotel, creating time for the guest, whether it's a seamless check-in from, when you find us on a website right through to when you get there, or whether it's an app that you use when you're there, or a self-service check-in kiosk, as you can see. So I'm just going to hand over to Klaas, who has the more difficult job of talking to the brand people and finding out how you're actually going to do all of that stuff. Because it always looks great on a piece of paper in a presentation, but in reality, the challenge for Klaas and the team was to find a way in which they could empower our crew to deliver this intuitive service.
Thank you. When we talk about creating time, so we're a hospitality establishment, so we sell a service experience. But we also sell time and productivity. It's our job to make sure that our guests are as productive with their time as they want it to be. But that doesn't mean that everything have to be a speedy process. It just means that we have to give them options on how they want their time to be used. So if we look at these pictures here, for example, we're the first hotel, as far as I know, that actually started having kiosk as the primary choice of check-in and check-out. Most people thought we were completely crazy when we did that 5 years ago. 98 to 99% of all our guests actually check in and check out via the kiosk. There's also some that goes to our front desk, or what we call mission control. As you will hear, there's a lot of airline vernacular that we have. We have a crew, we don't have a staff. We have crew quarters and so on. So anyway, with that experience, it really makes their experience so much easier. They just go in, they check in on the kiosk. It takes about 90 to 120 seconds, and they're off to the room. And they can decide whatever they want to do with their time. We've also done it so that in our app, you can check in as you're on your way from the airport or whatever that is, come in and scan your phone, and off you go to your room. But we also use technology for some excitement and fun. You saw the Yobot that stored your luggage. So it has bins that you can ask for it to come and give you a bin. So let's say you come in and check in early. There's no cabins available. Cabins, another airline vernacular. And you can store your luggage in the meantime. So it's really just a KUKA arm that we modified for a fun experience. So that's also how we use technology, because you can just imagine how many people sit and just watch that piece of equipment over and over again. And it's the most videoed thing on property as well. We also use it in our design. So there are many hotels in this market, especially in New York, very small spaces, and they just want to cram in a typical traditional furniture into that space. Our design of our cabins are actually made specifically for that footprint. We're also the only hotel that has a motorized bed that goes up into a futon position, if you will, so that when you don't use it for sleeping, you have all that space in the cabin that you need instead. When we look at the service experience too, we involve everyone. We think about what the customers are looking for, our guests. We look at what is the need of our crew. And then we also look at what the brand wants to be, and then of course our owners. It's all very important. And it all has to come together. And here's how we put the infrastructure together. So you see the technology in that center, then it's the brand, and it's everyone else. So it's all about what we do in the process of welcoming crew members, also what we do in welcoming guests, the processes that we put in place, and then how we measure that to make sure that we're doing the right thing. The big thing for us is that we don't use technology for the technology's sake. We're not tech dependent, but we're tech forward. So we're not going to have an iPad with everything working in the room through that iPad, and if the iPad breaks, you're done. This is more so what's going to help you in your experience, what's going to speed up the process for you. We touched on 31 practices. So all this tech, what that does is also enables us to take away the transactional experiences from our crew. Going up to the front desk and going checking in, it really becomes ID, credit card, and it becomes a transaction. So what this technology does for us, is that it also frees up time for us to focus on the relationship building with the guest. And we can focus on them and not on the transaction itself. So we needed to put this technology piece into processes of what we do, what we live, our core values. And we named it 31 practices based on a book written by a person called Alan Williams. And it really, what it does, it's creating a practice a day. So for 31 days, you have a different practice every day. And the entire property, the entire company actually, has the same practice every day. And that's just to make sure that we all stay true to everything that we go through and that we all focus on the same thing all the time. And when you've done this a few months, we started this in February this year, it becomes part of your DNA. It becomes part of how you treat your peers, how you treat your guests, and how you treat everyone around you. And it's really a global, approach that we're doing. And to show a little bit on how we make that global easy and interactive is we have what's called Jostle. And what that is almost like an internal Facebook, and it goes across the globe. So there can be peer recognition from London Heathrow to New York, or pretty soon Singapore and Boston and San Francisco. But it also connects us in a very different way, and using technology to do that. And there you see the booklet of the 31 practices.
Oh, is this my cue?
This is your cue.
Okay, I'm queuing. I'm right. There you go.
So every
this is
crew
super
member.
simple, guys. This is like right back to kind of the most simple way to communicate. Is that he's going to ask me in a minute what the practice of today is, and I'm going to say so. We have 31 practices in there, one for every single day, that our crew chose themselves. So we had 150 people throughout our hotels globally who had an input into what they felt every single practice of every single day should be. And then Klaus, your team take that into their briefings, and you've got some great ways of kind of talking about practice of the day. But we then end up with challenges. It becomes a bit like the ice bucket challenge. Do you know the practice of the day, and what have you done today to make a difference? And it's super simple.
It is, it's simple.
Concept.
And it needs to be simple for it to be natural and for it to be authentic and be easy to always continue. So what we also do is that we create videos that speaks to the practice of the day or the focus of the week, whatever that is. And then we airplay that to big screens that we have in our crew quarters when we do our pre-shift meetings. So that's also one way how we use technology. And we have iPads when we do cabin inspections, for example. So we can take pictures and download all the information so we can see what cabins in the building are having issues with high dusting, whatever that may be. And that's all collected into one area so that we can easily just use that data, dissect it, and hit the areas where we need. Some people need help with certain things. Let's help them. Let's just not do a training for everyone just because there's 5 people that need help in one area. And that's also how we help with productivity. And also something that when we show something on a video, you take away that confusion and the chance of error, because now they can see exactly what it is that you'd expect them to do. But this is really great to really build a way for a global company to connect in a social spirit. What does success look like? Well, it looks like everybody treats the way, our guests and each other the way they're supposed to treat them. And when we look at our guest survey scores and when we look at our crew member satisfaction scores, since we started this, I think we've grown about 16% almost in both of those areas. Now, we can't completely attribute everything to this, but I think it has a big deal to do with it. Because when you put that as part of who you are and becomes part of your personality, that's really when you have an authentic experience that people can trust and can believe in.
Yeah, and I think also delivers amazing returns for your investors, your partners, for your crew and your people through such a simple idea that we've really enjoyed using it. It doesn't cost much for those of you that have super small budgets, which I know is a challenge for all of us, and it works across a platform globally.
It does.
So, and I think that's it. I think we
have a couple of minutes.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes. If anybody has a burning question, or are you all too hungry?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Share a couple of your 31 practices.
Of course, today's one.
Today?
Day 28, I think. Oh, 28.
28.
Today is pay close attention to the person that you're dealing with.
And it goes into the brand value of honesty.
Yeah.
So it all ties into that as well.
There's all sorts. So they're split by the values. So we take a value, and then under each value, we have kind of 5 or 6 practices in each one. So they are meant to be, that they're about leadership top down. So if a practice of today is we notice what needs to be done, that means that you do it no matter who's not looking, right? And that goes from the CEO downwards. So if he doesn't pick up a bit of paper that's outside an elevator within the hotel, then somebody will pick him up on it.
And
I'd
it's
say,
great because
hey,
even this morning it was
that's
fun.
practice
We
of
talked
today.
about pay attention to the one you're dealing with. And I was doing some emails as they were doing pre-shift in my office, and they called me out on it. Saying, you're not following the practice this morning. So I'm like, okay.
No, we're like, what
And it's
examples
okay.
have
It's
we
about
got?
accountability too.
Yeah,
It's not
totally.
just about celebration.
Yeah,
it's about
totally.
accountability as well.
It's very, very empowering and extremely simple to use. And Alan's philosophy, who developed and did the forums with us to develop the practices, worked with a psychologist originally. Because what they found is that although they're super simple and just daily, is that they do become habit forming. And eventually people forget that they're daily practices. It just becomes a way of life.
And the biggest thing
very
is that
interesting.
they are part of it.
Yeah.
They are part of developing it. So the ownership is on every single crew member on property and in the company.
Sure. Anybody else? A quick one? We've got a few seconds.
It's more
No.
stomach growling.
Everybody's definitely too hungry. All right.
All right, thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.